Hello, welcome to this voter registration training that is going to focus on the changes for 2023. My name is Adrienne Molenkamp, and I am with the League of Women Voters of Athens County. So we are going to use the full voter registration training slides here, and then I'm going to go through and just highlight what is new or updated for 2023. So we assume that you've done voter registration before and just need a little refresher with the updates for this presentation. All right, we're going to kind of cover everything from registration to voting basics. Who can vote has not changed. Ohio citizen or US citizen, Ohio resident, 18 years old. How we do voter registration has not changed. Same sort of activities, remembering to be nonpartisan, and just a reminder that you cannot give anything in exchange for registering to vote. You may have incentives if they are available to anybody, regardless of whether they register to vote. The ways to check voter registration status have not changed. So this is the specific link to the voter registration, but all of this is accessible through voteohio.gov. The forms have been updated. They look remarkably similar, but there are some updates. So we will go through those briefly. Just again, what kind of registration is it, new or updating? We've got our same questions about citizenship and age. And then the voters information, again, all the same: name, street address, city, zip code, mailing address if it's different, county, date of birth. A reminder from me to strongly urge them to put in that phone number so that they can get, the Board of Elections can get in contact with them if there are any questions about the form. The part that is a little bit different is the identification required. Now the only things that can be accepted are an Ohio driver's license number. That can be any kind of driver's license, whether it's a regular car license, a motorcycle, temporary. A state ID card that has been issued by the Bureau of Motor Vehicles, so that state ID card number, or the last 4 digits of their social security number. If the voter has a driver's license or a state issued voter or state issued ID card, those are recommended. If the voter does not have those ID cards or they cannot access them to get the numbers, then the last 4 digits of their social security number is fine. Again, the last parts are the same. If they've got an old address, they're changing their name, those go here. Make sure at the bottom they sign in the box and date it. We expect to see the same kinds of problems. Again, the form's very similar. So make sure you're reviewing the form with the voter or when the voter's done to make sure it's all filled out correctly before it's turned in. As always, transient and unhoused individuals can register at an address that will accept their mail and that they intend to return to. We would just make sure we're talking to those voters about the new voting ID requirements to vote in person. And so that's going to be an unexpired driver's license or state ID card or a couple of other ones that we'll hit later on. And so those may be difficult. And so we may want to steer these voters towards absentee voting. College students, again, they can register at a college address or at a permanent address, which is usually a parent's address. Similar things that they should be thinking about when they're making that choice. Where are they going to be on election day? Are they going to be able to access a polling location or an early vote center? Are they going to need to vote by mail? Making sure they know what their ID options are. Have they moved recently? A new thing to note is that if they are using a driver's license or any ID, that address on their photo ID does not need to match the address they are registered to vote at. So if they're registering at their campus address, and their identity card has their parents' address on it, as long as that ID card meets the requirements, that is fine for voting in person here in Athens. And that's true for any voter. If they've moved and the address isn't updated, the photo ID will still work. Just it's a particular note with students. Just a new part to remember. So as always, the act of registering to vote in Ohio is not going to impact federal financial aid. It's not going to impact their driver's license from other states. However, if they obtained an Ohio ID card issued by the Bureau of Motor Vehicles, that will void their driver's license or ID card from another state and could affect their financial aid. So we are recommending that out-of-state students do not get an Ohio ID card. Those students, those out-of-state students especially, should consider voting by mail, whether that's, voting by mail here in Athens or whether they're registering at home and voting by mail. Just again, reminder to return those paper registration forms either within 10 days of their completion or by the voter registration deadline, whichever comes first. And you can, of course, remind voters that they will get confirmation of their registration in the mail. And if they are not sure about any of that, they can always check up their status on voteohio.gov. The online voter registration has remained the same, where they must use both the Social Security number, the last 4 digits of the Social Security number, and an Ohio ID card number, a driver's license or state ID card. Voter roll maintenance, of course, always continues. There were voter purges in February of 2023, so we recommend that all voters check that their registration is up to date with their current address. There are some, a little bit of changes to our voting options. So we have the same basic options, which is to vote in person on election day. In order to do that, you must show a photo ID, and we'll review the acceptable ID in a minute. As always, you can vote early in person at the Board of Elections office or early vote center. However, now you must show a photo ID to vote early in person. And finally, there is the same vote by mail absentee ballot option in the weeks before the election, and people that vote by an absentee ballot may use the last 4 digits of their Social Security number for their identification. The rules for military, hospitals, incarcerated are the same, except to note that now absentee ballots, including for military and overseas voters, must be received by 4 days before the election. And so we really want to encourage those voters to return materials as soon as possible. Okay, so you now need a photo ID to vote in person. The acceptable photo IDs are an unexpired Ohio driver's license, whether that's a commercial, a motorcycle, a temporary, any of that is fine. So if you're updating your ID card and you don't have your new one yet, your temporary one is fine. It can be a suspended driver's license as long as it is unexpired. Also acceptable are state of Ohio issued ID cards. These are specifically state ID cards issued by the Bureau of Motor Vehicles. So if you have some sort of ID card from another state organization, that does not count. It must be a Bureau of Motor Vehicles issued state ID card. You can use a U.S. military ID card, an Ohio issued National Guard ID card, a U.S. issued Department of Veteran Affairs ID card, or an unexpired U.S. passport or passport card. A reminder that the address on the ID does not need to match the voter's registration address. And a change that some people may need to know is that county veteran ID cards are no longer acceptable identification. You may have heard that Ohio is issuing free ID cards, and that is true. The Bureau of Motor Vehicles will issue a free ID card to anyone 17 or older who does not have a driver's license. Getting that ID card will require proof of identity, such as having a birth certificate or other documents. And so people should review what those ID requirements are by calling or checking online with the BMV before they actually show up to get those IDs. Okay, that's the highlights. Absentee ballot applications. The change here is that voters must use that official absentee ballot application form. None of the other types of forms that were acceptable in the past can be used. The deadline to return the absentee ballot application form is 7 days before the election, but obviously that's cutting it close to get that application submitted, processed, mail you a ballot, you return the ballot. So we recommend that you do it much earlier than that. This is the form. It's pretty much the same and straightforward to fill out. I will note that number 2 is the contact information is optional, but we of course recommend everybody to fill that out. Receiving and returning absentee ballots, the process is of course the same when you receive it to complete it according to all the directions. You may return the completed ballot to the Board of Elections office, either to the drop box or in the office. It has to be received by 7:30 p.m. on election day. You can also return it by mail, and the deadline has changed. So now, as always, it must be postmarked by the day before the election and must be received by the Board of Elections office by the 4th day after the election. So that is a shorter turnaround time. So we recommend that people really don't wait till the last minute to mail those ballots. Get them sent in early so they have time to arrive. You can, of course, still track that absentee ballot on voteohio.gov. Voters will still have provisional ballots as an option if they show up to vote in person and there is any question about whether they are eligible to vote. They can cast a provisional ballot. They'll be given instructions about what they need to do. So a common thing might be somebody showing up, not having the proper ID. They would cast a provisional ballot, be told that they have to bring their correct ID into the Board of Elections office. The important part to note here is that now the deadline to fix those things is 4 days after the election. So voters need to be really sure that they bring those materials back into the Board of Elections office as soon as possible. Resources are the same. We have new voter information palm cards with all the up-to-date information to hand out. I do want to tell you about a new organization in Ohio, Vote Riders. They help people get state-issued ID cards so that they can vote. So they can help people, walk people through the process of what they need to do to get a state ID card. They can help do some of the work to obtaining those documents like a birth certificate, and they can sometimes help cover the cost of getting those documents. So that is a great resource for anybody who needs an ID card, and they are at voteriders.org. Election protection will still be working, and if voters ever have questions, they can call 866-OUR-VOTE for election information. Tips. Again, the same we've always used. Be friendly and outgoing. Ask people if they've checked their voter registration. Make sure that we're letting people know there's new ID requirements. so that they can be sure they have the right things with them when they go to vote. As always, you can always look up information at voteohio.gov. And I think that's it. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me or to the League. Thank you for joining us today, and I hope this update is helpful as we educate voters about the new rules. Thank you.